Welcome to Win This City Wisdom, produced by New Acropolis. New Acropolis is a school and community dedicated to living philosophy. Philosophy that is connected to life. My name is Yadira, a student and volunteer, and with me here is Gilad Sommer, director and teacher at the New Acropolis School in Chicago. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
And we've been thinking about this topic, escapism. And I found it very intriguing, very telling, very closer to my heart.
That's good, because if it's interesting to you, it's probably going to be interesting also to our audience, right?
Hopefully. And, because at first I thought of escapism.
It's hard to put
the extreme things like addictions, drugs. But when I started wondering if I practice some of these techniques to escape, and I thought maybe I'm doing something, right? Because in the morning when I'm eating or just preparing, I usually have my phone with me and then listen to the news. But I thought, maybe I'm escaping because instead of, just be in the present, I'm just somewhere else.
Right. I think escapism starts like that, with something very benign, something very, subtle, not very dramatic. And we don't even notice that we're doing it, like you said, right?
So, I started asking myself, would that be considered a form of escapism? Or it's like the great Houdini, I'm escaping from my own life.
Yeah, we're a kind of Houdini, right? I think that escapism is not so much about what we do. It's a certain mindset. It's a certain mindset that leads to action that we take in order to avoid things. Whether it's avoiding pain, whether it's avoiding problems, or simply avoiding, like you mentioned before, simply avoiding silence, avoiding reflection, avoiding ourselves.
Well, that's really something, because avoiding ourselves, how can that be possible? How can we do that?
Well, it sounds strange, but we're all familiar with the difficulty we sometimes have to just be with ourselves, be with our thoughts, be with our emotions. It's not always comfortable, right?
And it's just not one thing, right? There are levels to it. There are different forms of escapism.
Right, there are different forms to escapism. You mentioned some, right? That those are the kind of hard forms of escapism. Drugs.
Very good to recognize.
Easy to recognize, right? Drugs and alcohol and strong addictions. And the thing about these forms of escapism, like you said, is that it's easy to recognize them. So everybody else is it's something that people frown upon, and everybody else is going to tell us, oh, what are you doing? You shouldn't do that. So in some way, it's much easier to recognize when we are using these forms of escapism, but usually most of us don't dabble in these forms of escapism, right?
So we move, into the softer versions of escapism. But we don't even notice that we are escaping, right? Because sometimes they are behind these good practices in life. So, like I mentioned, our daily routines.
Right. So these are things that a lot of times people don't see as harmful. They see them as harmless, scrolling and streaming and the dating apps and gaming and all these things. And it's that need of always having something in front of us. You come back home, you sit, you have few seconds with yourself in silence, immediately you reach out for the phone, immediately you turn on the television. It's inability to just, to just be present, right?
It's always, yeah, I feel that way when I'm always in the need to do something. Sometimes it's very tempting that you are just seated there. Let me see, what can I find on Amazon?
What can I find on Amazon? Like, suddenly I need this thing to my house that I never thought about before, but now it's absolutely necessary that I'll have it, because otherwise I don't know what
I'm bored. Let me buy something. Yeah.
Exactly. And actually I'll piggyback on that, because there are other forms of escapism that are seen as positive. For example, being busy, right? Busyness for busyness sake. Doing as a form of avoiding. It's interesting. Doing as a form of avoiding being. Yeah?
That's a dangerous one, because it would be, on the surface, it looks good. Like you are, you're thriving in your life because you're doing these things, and you are keeping yourself busy. And especially because we are bombarded by social media, that doing, the more you do, the more, the better life you're living, right?
Right, and I think that society appreciates it very much. I don't think there's anything that society today appreciates more than being productive. If you're productive, then you're definitely doing something good. But sometimes this can also be a form of avoidance, a form of escapism, right? And I'll tell you another thing. Sometimes even self-improvement, have you heard that term? Self-improvement can be a form of escapism.
Wow. Self-improvement, what do you mean?
I'll give you an example, right? So I don't know if you've heard of optimization. That's a new trend that's now on social media, right? Sometimes I escape to social media, so I saw this. Actually, it's like this trend that's about fine-tuning every microsecond in your life. It's like it's seen as a very kind of trend in self-improvement. And I actually have here an article that I found that really described it well and humorously, and I wanted to bring some parts of this article. Let me read a few lines. This is from an article in Spiked magazine by a writer called Jacob Phillips. So he says this: if I were to put into practice just a tiny amount of the content I've recently viewed on social media, I would immediately, on awakening, make sure I rehydrate with water. And the bottle has to be steel or glass, yes, to minimize the absorption of harmful microplastics which stimulate the adrenal gland. I would then do a 3-minute mobility sequence to optimize my joint health and dexterity and to impede aging. And then I'd promptly go outside and walk barefoot on the grass to let the Earth's electromagnetic forces radiate through the soles of my feet. That's not enough. After that, then comes daily meditation time, followed by a series of positive affirmations recited in the mirror. Then breakfast with either high protein or medium carb or something like that. Eating whole foods sourced from organic providers. And having ensured the optimal provision of micronutrients, it would be time for an ice plunge. And after this, I would have an espresso with raw milk and wild honey, optimizing mental function for the day ahead.
Oh my God. I'm totally failing at life.
Yes, we're both failures.
Because, and if I do that, I'll be by 10 in the morning, 9 in the morning, exhausted of making all these things. And
I heard a joke about this, that people who do these things may not lengthen their life, but it's definitely going to feel that life.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's almost, it's like social media and society around is telling us ourselves to treat us like a product, like if we're on the assembly line, right? And and I think it's confusing too, because when you are talking about these positive concepts of optimization and then being the project manager of your life, it sounds good.
It sounds good. It sounds like self-improvement.
Yeah.
But first of all, Personally, I don't think it has anything to do with self-improvement. I don't think it's about self-improvement because, nobody has become a better person for drinking raw honey latte or whatever it is. If you want to become a better person, you have to reflect, you have to face what people call your demons, your shortcomings, you have to be in the present, you have to deal with yourself, you have to develop your latent values, develop your potential abilities, and drinking this latte or that latte or absorbing macronutrients from whatever, that's not going to make you a better person. And not only that, I think that this actually can make you even more self-centered because you're so obsessed with yourself in every tiny second of your life. Who has time to help other people, to be there for other people? And sometimes to be there for other people, you have to make sacrifices. So you maybe have to wake up an hour earlier than that specific time that is going to be the most healthiest for your skin. So, I can't imagine someone like Mother Teresa saying, I can help the poor, but only when the UV is between 5.4 and 5.8. Otherwise, my skin is not going to be as perfect as it can be. And, it's not... I
need my SPF, otherwise I won't be out of the house. Yes. But so where's the line? Because we're not saying, don't take care of yourself. Don't be organized. Where is it? Where should we cross it?
Right. So we're not saying you have to meditate all day long. We're not saying don't take care of yourself. We're not saying stay at home and just stare at the ceiling. What we're saying is, first of all, recognize where are your actions coming from. What is your motivations? Why are you doing what are you doing? Why are you reaching out for the phone? Why are you reaching out for this? Why are you going to that? Try to first look inside and see why. Why are you doing certain things?
So it's like when you have a lot of on your head, and then there are certain issues that you really haven't paid attention to, or it accumulates.
Right.
And instead of dealing with those feelings, those emotions, maybe some sadness, you start looking for some external things.
Right.
That's where, to keep our minds occupied, that's where the distraction is coming from.
Exactly. It's about distracting our mind, avoiding confrontation with reality. But here's the thing. You can't. It's not real. It's impossible to avoid reality. Well, the only thing we're doing is postponing a confrontation with reality that in any case is going to come sooner or later. So let's ask ourselves this question. Can I, for a few minutes, not, just to be in silence, just to be with myself and not reach out for the phone, yeah?
I mean, honestly, it sounds easy to do, but sometimes we're not even aware that we are escaping.
Yeah, and that's the problem, right? That's the problem.
And I think a lot of us feel like if we're not doing something, then we are wasting our time by just sitting quietly. It's like, what's wrong with me?
So first of all, we're not saying don't do anything, right? First of all, action is very important in life. We have to act in this world, yeah? But we can reframe it and say that we're not talking about not doing something. We're talking about doing, but a different kind of doing. A doing instead of external doing, internally doing in our inner world. And that kind of doing is what we call reflection. It means looking inside, try to understand why am I taking my actions? What am I trying to achieve? Because when we take actions without reflecting, these actions are not going to come from the right place and probably are not going to lead to the results we're actually looking for. And it's true that in the beginning it's going to be difficult because we're going to feel that we're bored and maybe we won't feel anything. Maybe suddenly we'll feel things that we neglected, that we repressed, right?
Yeah, hearing ourselves, right? We're not used to. It might feel weird. And I think one of the exercises that the therapists that they try to identify if you're depressed or not is just to be seated with saying nothing. So if you're depressed, I think you might start crying.
Oh,
I think it's an exercise, yes.
Interesting. I've never heard about it. Right. Actually, these moments, that they may feel empty are exactly these moments where you can, that's where it starts. That's when the inner work, because it is work, it is action, this inner work starts. Right.
In those boring moments or those moments, really our life is constructed by those moments.
A lot of our life, right?
Yeah, those menial moments, really, it's we spend most of our lives there.
Right.
But the thing is, we think that we need to live our life like if we were on a movie.
Right. We think every moment has to be exciting. Something has to happen every moment. If it's not, something is wrong. We're wasting life, yeah?
And what are we actually avoiding?
Ourselves.
Well, how can that be possible?
When I say we're avoiding ourselves is because when we turn inside, when we turn inwards, we start seeing things, fears, doubts. We're starting to see those inner contradictions, right?
To start feeling that baggage.
That baggage, that gap, right?
So the gap between what I say, what I want, and what I actually do.
Right. So there is a gap. We call it in the school the ethical gap between this is what I know that that is right, and this is what I actually do. And if we pay attention inside, we're going to see that gap. And once we see that gap, it sort of asks us for something. It tells us, okay, that gap, you have to
change.
You have to change.
To be disciplined.
Right. You have to make an effort. You have to make an effort to close that gap, right?
So instead of what we're doing now, instead of putting that effort, we just keep moving, keep distracting ourselves.
Right. And that doesn't help because at the end of the day, if we keep distracting ourselves, the problems that were in the beginning small are just going to grow. And the things that we don't deal with, they're not going to disappear. They're just going to stay there. And also we're going to feel like life becomes empty in a way, right?
Yeah, a little empty. Sometimes you wonder, there's something that I don't know what it is, but it feels empty.
Right. And
and we also, I think we look for that magical something, like that, like this magical retreat, that book, that podcast that will fix my life, even that person that will make my life happier.
Right, you're right. We're always looking, so we have inner problems, and we're constantly looking outside for our solutions. And that's as ridiculous as looking inside for solutions for our external problems, right? So if I have, my toilet is plugged, I'm not going to look for a feeling to unplug, right? I'm not going to reflect how I'm going to, call the plumber. In the same way, if something inside of me is plugged, right, is stuck, I'm not going to find it in the closet that, I don't remember the name of that thing that you unplug toilet, but we need to unplug internal things, we need internal solutions, right? So all these external things that they're not going to solve us, our problem. So I have this friend, and she went with her family. She took the whole family to a trip to the east. They went to India, Nepal, Thailand, I think.
So they were trying to find themselves.
Find themselves, okay. Yeah. So they went for a whole year. So a long trip, and they had a good time. But when they came back, I remember she wrote this post on Facebook, and she said, "You know what I realized? My greatest realization from this trip is that no matter where you go, even to the exoticest, you're going to take yourself with you. You're going to take your problems with you, because your problems are not going to disappear in another country. Wherever we go, there we are. Wherever we go, we're going to take ourselves, right? So the solutions is not going to be neither by avoiding with external things or by going somewhere, right?
So how does it look like to stop escaping? So because that sounds pretty big.
Yeah, it's not big. I mean, it starts small. You just, so like I said before, let's start with an exercise. So when you're about to reach for the phone, stop. Take a few minutes. Just be there. Just observe. Just think about something else. Think about, how can I improve today? How can I look back in your day and think, oh, how could I have done this better? Try and recognize something that you can improve in yourself. And what we're trying to do is to replace unconscious escapism with conscious reflection.
Well, that feels manageable. And going back to my example, so what I've been trying to do is when I feel this urge, I say, no, so I'm going to just be here, not care about what's going on, in the news. And I think, it's, I can start from there.
Right. We have to be careful because we don't mean, those just going around in your head, right?
Just not be seated there just thinking and thinking and thinking. It's just not about overthinking.
It's not about overthinking, right? It's about reflection. And real reflection always has some result. So it could be more clarity. It could be understanding, insight. Eventually, action.
Okay. And to feel more connected to ourselves, to, be peace in our mind. And it feels, I understand, but also it feels hard because everything around us is pushing us in the opposite direction.
Right. I think we live in a society that promotes distraction. All kinds of distractions. We turn distraction into an art form, right?
Yes. The thing is that it's hard to to distinguish what is what are the activities that are good and which are the ones that are we're doing to escape.
Right. I agree, and it's also I think also that consciousness and reflection are not very good for the economy, right? Because if you're conscious, if you're reflective, you're not going to consume as much.
Yes.
You shop more purposefully. You're more conscious of your actions, right?
So with all these distractions, choosing to pause feels almost unnatural. Why do I have to do it if I'm not doing anything wrong?
Yeah. Well, I don't know, unnatural, but it's definitely going against the current. And philosophers have been known throughout history to go against the current. You have to go against the current if you want, to do something a little bit differently, yeah?
That reminds me of something that we do at school, and we're going to show a photo of that. It's a class that we have, and then we talk about Plato's cave.
Plato's cave, right?
Yes,
so
yes.
The photo that we're showing obviously is not from the time of Plato. And it's also
a new version.
It's a new version. It's a more up-to-date version of Plato's cave. And Plato speaks about these people who are chained to each other, facing the wall, and on this wall there are shadows. So in the image you see it's not shadows, but TV screens, could be phone screens. And in the story, all the people are just focused on the shadows and they think that's the real world. And this one person somehow gets out of that trance and is released from the chains, and he eventually leaves out of the cave and sees the real world.
So what the cave is telling us is that you are okay by being chained there, right?
Yeah. And
so the question is how to escape. But what we are avoiding.
Right. I think we are avoiding our inner world. We are avoiding ourselves. And if we want to escape the cave, we have to stop escaping reality. We have to stop with our escapism. And to stay in the cave is escapism. If we want to escape the cave, we have to turn inwards.
And not all at once, right? It's just starting somewhere.
Right, because real change never comes out of distraction. Real change comes from consciousness, from awareness.
Well, I really enjoyed the topic of today, Gilad. And thank you for everyone who joined. We hope we gave you some food for thought on your journey to know yourself. As you see, philosophy isn't just about reading, it's a practical path to living with more purpose and clarity. So if your curiosity was sparked, you can find us at New Acropolis Chicago at Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Not to stay in the cave, but just to find us. So stay tuned for the next episode. See how timeless wisdom can be a tool for modern life. Until next time, thank you.